Welcome back, Florida Politics Now. Sorry we missed you last week, but it has been quite the special session. Here joined by our great panel, Gainesville, Sarasota, Panama City, and of course, right here in Tallahassee. Biggest news of the week by far, we had a special session go into June. That's getting rare. Normally, you don't see something like that. It's all about property taxes. Ultimately, both the Florida House and the Florida Senate passed a bill that's going to go to voters. What it means for you at home, your property taxes could be greatly reduced only if this passes. So let's get a little background, let's get some knowledge, and then we'll head into our questions. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first story.
Avils have dropped. The Florida legislature proposing a big change to Florida's tax system. If voters agree in November, that tax system could be entirely redone.
The only real holdup, what will happen to schools? Eventually, lawmakers decided that schools could keep collecting property taxes while proposing 100% cuts to homes worth $250,000 or less for other local governments.
The tough decision is usually very difficult, and 120 members got together and made that decision. That's why in the future the state of Florida is going to be in a better position than we found it. The K through 12 issue was a part of that whole.
Republican Senator Jennifer Bradley says Tuesday's vote happened because local government budgets got out of hand.
The day we are here because our system is not in balance. We have seen local government budgets soar.
Even some Democrats supported at least parts of the bill, despite reservations.
I hear it from seniors on fixed incomes, working families, young people struggling to buy a home, and homeowners watching their property tax bills climb year after year.
The speaker brushed aside the idea that the proposal, released just days ago, was rushed through.
Had the proposals run through the process. That was never reciprocated by our friends in the Senate, and it wasn't held to high regard by the governor, for lack of a better term.
But Democratic leadership says non-homeowners will be hurt.
Alternatives. We have offered a cap on property insurance. We have offered a gas sales tax. We've offered things to make it easier for first-time home buyers.
Here's how it would work. The first fiscal year, homeowners would get a $150,000 exemption. The second fiscal year, that bumps up to $250,000. But importantly, the legislature did not take up the governor on his offer to basically make that exemption unlimited. Instead, they took a more cautious approach in which if voters do agree, then the legislature will come back to set any type of future schedule. For now, in Tallahassee, I'm Matt Hoffman.
And you just heard it there. This is not the exact proposal the governor wanted. He has been floating this plan for some time, though he only announced it very closely to the special session. The legislature made a lot of big changes. Perhaps the biggest one, you heard it there in that story, property taxes are still allowed for schools. There is a lot of concern that schools would really struggle if they didn't have those property taxes. And so that's a big change coming to your ballot in November. Enough from hearing from me. Let's get to the colleagues. Go around the room. Any questions you may have.
Matt, the 6th District Senator Jennifer Bradley, who represents much of North Central Florida, Gainesville, Lake City, et cetera, talked about bloated local budgets. Now, we know that the state has been auditing a lot of governments, including here in Gainesville, Alachua County, many other parts of the state as well. Did Senator Bradley or anybody in the House or Senate speak specifics about which local governments they were talking about?
They sure did. And they pointed largely to Miami-Dade County and Southern Florida, though they did mention Alachua County. They did mention Gainesville, even Leon County and City of Tallahassee got a passing swipe. And they're really worried about this inflation of the budget, that since COVID, spending at the local level has drastically increased. Of course, that should come along with some resources and some services that they're now worried that will be cut. But local governments were no doubt in the crosshairs. There's even some testimony in the Senate Appropriations Committee from some local leaders saying, please don't do this. That didn't seem to sway them at all.
And Matt, out at the Capitol, was there any sense if there is 60% approval for this? I know it seemed like the lawmakers were just happy to get it to the voters. And I know the House Speaker made it sound like, well, whatever they decide is clearly the way to go. So do we think there's 60% approval out here? I feel like with the abortion and the marijuana amendments a couple years ago, there was at least some polling out there. There was some thoughts on how it might go. I haven't seen much of anything on if there really is 60% approval out there.
Yeah, I also have not seen any direct polling, and I think that's just because of the speed at which this happened, announced by the governor and then very quickly into that special session. So there hasn't been a lot of time to figure out how voters are feeling. I think perhaps the best indicator of that would be that some Democratic senators and representatives did vote for this, despite the fact that they traditionally do not agree with the governor on much of anything. I think that tells you that they think it might have 60%, because why would I vote for it if I didn't believe that it goes against my party principles? And so I think that the tea leaves are that they believe it does have 60%. I think the really only holdup was, would we get 60% if we kept the schools inside of the program? If we said we're going to cut the property tax to the schools, that gets a lot of parents fired up about how is my local school district going to operate. I think by taking that out, that greatly increased their odds of getting that 60%.
And I know it's going to be voted on in November, but we've had a lot of people reaching out to us, viewers, that kind of just don't understand this. They're like, well, is it only for people whose homes are valued at $250,000? I think the way that it's written is a little bit confusing for just Floridians.
I think that's true. And there's a lot of questions on that because, right, you have your assessed value, then you have what the home is actually worth, what it would sell for, and then you have all these different caps that were thrown around. This is all about the assessed value. If this passes the first fiscal year, you get $150,000 exemption on your property taxes, minus the schools. Second fiscal year, $250,000 assessed value. Again, schools can still tax. The governor's original plan had called for an unlimited cap, that he thought that you shouldn't pay property tax, frankly, at all, depending on even if your home's worth millions of dollars. That's not what we're talking about. That was not adopted. There is still confusion, and we mentioned the tax collectors just earlier. They're crunching the numbers right now, trying to figure out the messaging in this and how it's all going to work.
The big question I think that local government leaders have is, where can we make up some of this at least in order to provide services? And obviously there's nothing in the legislation that provides for that, but is there discussion in Tallahassee about what they might still be able to do to help local governments make up, especially those smaller fiscally constrained counties and towns that may lose a major chunk of their budget?
There is talk, and that's a great point from David. Originally the governor's plan called for this trust fund, that if you lost out on your property taxes, you could go to the state and get grants to fill in that money that you lost. Well, that trust fund is out. Democrats didn't like it, and some of the Republicans also didn't like it because it gave the state a lot more control over your local government. The fact is, as you mentioned, that's now not in this legislation. So what will happen, we don't know for certain just yet. One of the senators who is the sponsor of the bill, he said that he believes they've expanded the core services enough to encapsulate all the things local governments would do. Remains to be seen. Originally, things like elections, things like the clerk of court, mosquito control, they were not originally allowed as core services. That raised people's alarms. We need all these things. In terms of what can be done, I've heard a lot of special assessments and a lot of impact fees. That's what I've heard. Of course, an example here in Tallahassee, the county government has garbage pickup. They charge a fee for your garbage and your recycling. In theory, they could raise that fee and say, well, we lost money from over here, so we need to raise this fee, and we have to wait and see how that plays out. All right, well, I think if that wraps up our property tax education, let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll come back and hit you with another story. All right, welcome back, Florida Politics Now. The second story we picked for you this week will really be big. Property tax talks, we have this story. You may know that Governor Ron DeSantis has called on certain judges to be impeached. Well, the House Speaker says that's not going to be happening. Let's take a listen to our second story, all about impeachments and judicial independence. Tiffany Baker Carper will not be removed from office despite the controversy surrounding her handling of the Daniel Spencer case. You might have heard that one caught statewide attention. Despite calls from the governor and the attorney general, Florida's House Speaker says no judges will be impeached, at least until next year. This week, Florida House Speaker Daniel Perez said he wasn't interested in impeaching any judges, despite calls to do so by the governor and AG.
I'm not a big social media guy, but I'll take your word at face value. If that's something that they're calling for, future legislatures can make that decision.
And that's a decision the Florida Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers is celebrating.
They both have named other judges over the past year that should be impeached. And so it's incredibly important that the decision was made by the Speaker to do this, but it is dangerous if the executive branch continues to do this.
The association says lawmakers already made it illegal to release a suspect like Daniel Spencer in the future. Governor DeSantis celebrated Missy's law, but he still called for the impeachment.
Just in terms of protecting the public, once one of these guys are convicted, you've got to pull out all the stops to protect these kids.
For criminal defense lawyers, maintaining judicial independence is critical.
Had the judge been made aware of the investigations that were ongoing, that the state attorney's office and the police were conducting, if this judge had known about that, she would not have released this person.
Finally, the Attorney General has also called on the legislature to impeach a Miami-Dade state court judge who also received a reprieve. According to the Florida Judicial Qualifications Commission, complaints can still be made against judges, but those are handled ultimately by the Florida Supreme Court, not folks over here at the Capitol who handle impeachments. For now, in Tallahassee, I'm Matt Hoffman. All right, that story, of course, on impeaching judges. The thing about this is sort of a battle between the governor and the speaker. You probably know, if you're a viewer of this show, that the speaker and the governor, while being the same party, do not always get along. For the defense bar, this is a win for judicial independence, but it's a little bit unclear if that's what's going on or if there's politics going on. I'll also tell you, being based here in Tallahassee, this Missy Mogul case has been just heartbreaking for every parent here, and this is something that they will be watching closely, even if they don't watch the judicial system all that closely. Oh, let's go ahead and open it up for questions.
Well, my first question was simply going to be, is this really a blow for judicial freedom, or is it politics? Because Daniel Perez perhaps just wants to tweak the governor. And so I think that question is still out there. Will the next governor and the next Speaker of the House and Senate President have this same kind of relationship where they're just constantly going after each other?
And Matt, do we know?
Yeah, that's a great point, David. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Matt. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do we know if similar action had taken by prior sessions of the legislature to remove other judges? Is there a precedent for this? I know you mentioned in the report there you can go through the legal complaint through the Supreme Court, or you can go the impeachment route.
Yes, that's a great question. To be honest, the impeachment is pretty much dead. The legislature hasn't been in the business of impeaching judges for a really long time. And that's actually, if you go to the Judicial Qualifications Commission's website, it'll tell you that's one of the reasons we have this other process, is because we couldn't correct the judge's behavior other ways. To David's question about what happens next when the new legislature gets sworn in, I think that's honestly anybody's guess. A new legislature might be motivated to go ahead and take another look at this. We also have to keep in mind that will be months from now, and they may say, this was a big story back then, but we have bigger things to do. I think, honestly, that just waits to be seen.
Misconduct or even a pattern of abuse or poor judgment. And that's not, it doesn't appear, at least what we're seeing here is any kind of pattern of that. So that's why this smacks so much political opportunism to call for somebody's impeachment after a very high profile and sad outcome, but still one case only.
And
yeah, I think that's exactly right. One case, one ruling. Go ahead, Allison.
Oh, sorry. I just was going to ask, have there been any complaints filed against the judge with that judicial committee?
Yeah, that's a great question. The complaints themselves are confidential. We don't know. They only become public after a certain point in the process. So as far as we know, the answer is no. Separate from that, and in the politics of it, I have not heard of other generalized complaints against this judge. It's pretty much solely been focused on this case of Missy Moga, which again, absolutely tragic, but is one case. All right, well, thank everybody for joining us. Florida Politics Now, 2 of the top stories from this week. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, guys. We're all good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We'll see you. All right. Good to meet you. We'll see you. Bye-bye.